Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night. I'm Justin Tarbell, your host and moderator for the evening. Tonight's event and live broadcast is brought to you by the Akwesasne Convenience Store Association. Nyawat Goa to everyone for joining us here at the Akwesasne Mohawk Casino Resort. The agenda for tonight's event will begin with a timed presentation from all candidates who are seeking election to the St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Council. There are 6 candidates in total, and each candidate will have a maximum of 5 minutes to introduce themselves and present their political platforms in which they are campaigning. They can use the time fully or not, it's up to them. There will be no order of presenting as the names will be randomly drawn. The presentations will be followed by an open question and answer period from questions from the audience here in our community. All questions will be vetted through the executive producer, Sheryl Jacobs, and then given to me to ask the candidates. All right, so the 2018 St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Council election candidates are as follows. For Chief, Sheryl Jacobs as an official write-in candidate. Ron LaFrance Jr. and Eric Thompson. For Subchief, Cory Tarbell, Marjorie Skitters, and Benjamin Hearn. Our first candidate up tonight is Benny Hearn.
Let me know when.
Take it away, Benjamin.
All right. Segos Ewagwego. My name is Benjamin Hearn. I am the youngest son of the late Robert and Dolores Hearn. And for those of you that may not know, my grandparents on my mother's side, the late Francis and Betty Jock. On my father's side, the late Tom and Louise Hearn. I'm 40 years old, and about 5 years ago, I set out on a mission and a goal. The primary goal was to get my bachelor's degree. At 36, it was a scary, scary endeavor. I'm too old. I'm sitting in class with 18-year-olds. What can I contribute? But I endured. And I'm happy to say that as of May 19th, last week, I walked across Potsdam States with a business degree, Bachelor of Science. So, thank you. I'll tell you, the last 4 years have been the hardest years of my life because in addition to that, I was working full-time as well here at the casino. Now, working at the casinos gave me a lot of perspective and insight, especially from a marketing initiative. Each day, we had to come up with different ways of bringing people to the casino. We had to be creative. We also had to have a lot of accountability on that side. So that's what I want to bring as a sub-chief candidate. That same accountability from working at the casino. Now, one of the major aspects of the casino that I pride myself on is the ability to communicate, both written and verbally. Now, this is a perfect platform because we're live on Akwesasne TV, and I want to be able to really promote the fact that there are a lot of community members that are unable to come to these meetings, whether it be living out of town, maybe other priorities that are, kids, sports, whatever it may be. So I want to just show that the community that can have an ability to, bring back some type of social media, some type of presence here to the community for people like my sister who can't even be here because she's very ill at the moment. I'm also sitting on 4 current boards. I sit on the Mohawk Indian Housing Corporation Board, Communication Committee here at the Akwesasne Mohawk Casino. I also sit with the Community Partnership, and most importantly, just a couple months ago, I was inducted with the Cultural Tourism Working Group. So as you can see, there's a lot on my plate, but I want to step up and do the next big thing is, run for Subchief of the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe. When we talk about advocating different programs here in the community, there are so many things that we can talk about. I narrowed it down to 5 Now, if you bear with me, I don't want to speak about each one because there is a time limit, and I'm looking at it now. 2 minutes left to go. Education, healthcare, housing, technology, as well as economic diversity. Now, from an educational standpoint, it starts with the bottom. It starts from our kids all the way up. It really is a platform to empower each of our youth, to show them that they can do whatever they want in this life, but to be productive members of our society. And I truly believe if we continue to push them through programs such as JOM, through programs along with them such as the Akwesasne Boys and Girls Club, it's a viable option for them to continue on their education, either through post-secondary, just finishing high school, even get into some type of trade. So it's very important for that. Now, when we talk about technology, again, I just alluded to very quickly, opportunities that we have to, show these meetings on a broader platform, especially for people out of town. And that's actually one of the biggest things that I've heard, campaigning in the area is, why can't we just show them in one way or another through that? 1 minute to go, thank you. But before I conclude, because there's a lot more I want to do, I just want to thank each and every one of the candidates in write-in, because to do this, it's not an easy endeavor. You're put through a lot of scrutiny, and they want to know who, what, where, when, why about you. So, just take a moment to thank each one of them. And lastly, I just wanted to say, we have low voter turnout here as well. Whether it be from a youth perspective, whether it be from people that are out of town, but it's really important for us to be able to show that there is an opportunity for them to do that as well. So in closing, I just want to say promote the vote, and best of luck to the candidates come June 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. And the next candidate up for Chief, Eric Thompson.
Sekä se on kuinka. Dono jätteni jungets Akwesasne wakana galado dano anawado no kwadi wakade hial. Yuri wana jina hoda yungwat sterista yungwat johan yano kwadi dano te wakato hojoni ezo yungwayoda ezo yungwayata rehto dano te wakato hojoni ji oxa jina hoda yungwadasu wato yuri wana yungwa huncha tano nahod nen nahoda su nen yungwat sterista. Yuri wana ji unkaka an yungwa dadi na yungwa wana oni. Tuwaga to hojoni ji tonagila. Igere se unga dawiya de se igere agyote. So my name is Eric Thompson. I'm from Racket. I was born and raised in Akwesasne. I'm raising my family here in Akwesasne. I ran on four pillars last time I entered this position. It's economic development, environment, language, and culture. And environment, economic development, language, culture, and pro-sovereignty. So each of those is a very large pillar of what we've been working for at council. The environment, to me, is the centerpiece of that, because we can have everything that we want in any other category, but if the environment is not clean and our health is not, we're not a healthy population because of that, then it's really, what's the point of it all? One of the major initiatives that we've been working on is bringing attention to the Superfund site at GM and the Superfund site of the Grass River and Reynolds. We've done a lot of lobbying. We've raised attention in DC on that issue, all with an aim of reopening the ROD and having that, the racer site, as it's called now, cleaned up properly. The provisional remedy that's been utilized there was never embraced as the proper remedy here. I don't believe that we were consulted in the manner that we should have been consulted in. We should have had a greater say in the remedy, in the implementation of the remedy, and in the monitoring of it. Our environmental department has done a great job in monitoring that, but the reality is the site is still there and it's just capped. So we're doing major work on that. I think that we're getting traction on it. I spend so much time on it because it's such an important thing. Economic development, I think that increasing and diversification of our revenue streams is something that we absolutely have to concentrate on, and I think that we've been successful in doing so. We've opened up a couple of outside of the box endeavors that have the seeds been planted, I believe will bear fruit shortly. Language and culture. I opened up with the language because I believe that language is really important. It's key to identity. I think that it's important for us as we move around, as we go into Indian country and visit with state officials and federal officials, that we speak our language. So that they know that we still have our language and that we have our identity. I think that the resources that we have in the community are excellent, and we have to support and cultivate those. Pro-sovereignty. Working with other nations, other Indian nations, has been really one of the positive experiences I think that I've experienced here on council. It's enabled us to put together a coalition of 20-odd nations along the border to form an alliance to address our border issues. And these nations are on the eastern, or from east to west on the northern border. So I think that we've had several meetings. We formed a Northern Border Tribal Alliance, and I think that the pro-sovereign and nation-to-nation relationships that we forged there are going to help us in our border issues. So, I'm about out of time, so go on.
Thank you very much, Eric. Our next candidate will be for Chief, Ron LaFrance.
My name is Ron LaFrance, and I'm running for chief this year. My parents are the late Ron LaFrance Sr., and my mom's name is Martha. She suffered a stroke that was pretty devastating to our family. It's hard to talk to someone who doesn't know your name anymore. So I would like to see, more help for stroke victims and the elderly. My dad, he quit high school. He got his GED, then he got his bachelor's from Empire State College, and he got his master's and his doctorate from Cornell University in 3 years. So if anybody out there doesn't think that you can't do it, you can. And he had 6 kids to feed. So he did that. And so if somebody tells you that they can't do it, it can be done. For the last 25 years or so, I've been a coach in this community, for most of it with the boys. And then there came a point where my daughters wanted to play lacrosse, and being a traditional person, I was dead set against it. I didn't think that they should be playing. And then I went to a game, and my daughter, Araya, it was amazing to see what she could do. I went to the very last game that they had, and they were mad about that. And I've been hooked on it ever since. So for the last 5 years, I've been working with Cory and John Lazor. We formed the Akwesasne Ride. We are now a competitive team that goes all over New York State. We've gone down to Virginia. A couple weeks we'll be in Maryland, or not Maryland, but Massachusetts. So it's important that the attention that we give to the boys here with lacrosse and hockey needs to start, that same attention needs to be given to the girls. Back when I was on council the first time, it was fun. It really was. And people say, why do you want to do it again? I said, because I miss it. I started a lot of things that I need to make sure that they continue. One of them, Barbara Lazor, myself, and Lorraine White went down to Oneida, and we met with the Venezuelans, and we came back with a field program. And I'm happy to say that ever since I've been on council, I've yet to hear of an elder freeze to death or has to choose between getting fuel or feeding themselves. And I think I take great pride in that. The other thing, when I wasn't born here in Akwesasne, like so many of us, our fathers were iron workers, and they had to go where the work was. But when we moved back in 1976 rather, I decided that I wanted to be a part of this community. And my dad always instilled in me that you're from this place. Doesn't matter if you're not born here. He said, when you were born, we came back to Duda's house and we planted your belly button in their yard. And he said that no matter where you go, that's a beacon. It'll always draw you home. And I've been here for the last 30 years. I've raised 4 children. 2 of them in our college and 2 of them are in middle school. I've been married to my wife, Monica, for 25 years, coming up in August. And it hasn't been easy. Hasn't been easy by a long shot. One, she's a Mohawk woman, and we all know what that means. So, but we work together and we've raised children. We were foster parents. We probably had 20 or 30 foster children that come in and out of our homes. So it's important. One of the important things that my dad always instilled in me, he says, you need to leave Akwesasne a better place than when you came here. And I think I've done that. And I can read even that far away. I don't have my old man glasses on, but I can see that very good. What I want to say is, though, is that we need to diversify our economy, and there's so much out there. Hopefully that these questions will be brought up later on. I knew we're short for time, so I'd like to thank everybody for showing up, Akwesasne TV, for putting on this event, the Akwesasne Convenience Store Association, and my girls won tonight 8-1 against Watertown. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ron. And the next candidate we have up tonight will be Marjorie Skitters for Subchief.
Sego, I'm Marjorie Skitters. I'm running for Subchief. I'm running on several things, on education, language, Mohawk language being very important. It's the basis of our sovereignty. If we can't speak our language, then there's no basis for sovereignty at all. And even though I can't speak my language, my children can speak Mohawk. My son recently got a job at Salmon River as a Mohawk teacher there, and I'm very proud of that. I'm also running on seniors and health and the access or easier access of services at the health center. The environment is dear to me. There's, such as Eric was talking about, Alcoa West, Alcoa East, the GM cleanup along the St. Regis River, St. Lawrence River, and Grass River. And also now we have to think about who will become our neighbors with the sale of the old GM property. That's up for sale now. And so we have to keep that in mind and really think about who's going to plant their next development there. I'm backed by extensive work experience as in education as a teacher, as a director, a school principal, and a special education principal. I have first-hand experience in running a small business and first-hand experience at it failing too. So it's given me quite the experience there. As the editor of Indian Time, I have a thorough understanding of the national, regional, local, and community issues that impact us daily here in Akwesasne. It's taught me how to be factual and accountable, and to also be open. And those are the 3 bases that I want to share with you: transparency, accountability, and community expectations. What do you expect of me as a sub-chief? I have a bachelor's of arts, a master's of science in education, and a master's in educational administration. The 2 masters I received while working full-time and raising 4 children. And I had to walk to Potsdam and all the way back in the snow. Yes, uphill both ways. All right, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marjorie. Our next candidate is going to be Cory Tarbell for Subchief.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cory Tarbell, and I'm running for the position of Subchief. My family is, my father is Carl Tarbell, my mother is Patricia Tarbell. Some of you might know my uncle Norman Tarbell, who was also a chief before. My grandparents are Norman and Margaret Tarbell. I'm not really running on any kind of platform. I mean, there are so many issues in our community that I want to be involved in. I'm just hoping that if elected, you know, to work side by side with the chiefs to work on all these issues that I want to work on. I'm very involved with youth sports, as Ron let you know. We started our own lacrosse club about 5 years ago, and we are competing downstate with some of the best lacrosse teams around. I want to be involved working with the seniors and just talking to them about what issues that they have, what things I can help with in the community. I was an iron worker for a number of years growing up. My father was an iron worker. Most of my uncles were iron workers. I know what hard work is. I didn't know it until I became an iron worker. And I'm willing to work hard for the community, and hopefully with your vote, I can do that for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cory. And our last candidate for tonight will be for Chief, Sheryl Jacobs.
Sego Guego. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight. I'm Sheryl Jacobs. I'm originally from Ganadago. My father and mother, Freeman and Shirley Jacobs. My dad died when he was young. I come from a family of 10. I'm the oldest of the girls in the family, 6 brothers. I'm not running on the word platform. I'm running on the word, I've been knocking on doors, asking the community about needs. When I first ran as a sub-chief, I basically ran on a whim. Somebody asked me in the community, why don't you? Interesting. I was a politician on the Canadian portion, on the northern portion, and I said, why not? So I've learned a lot in 3 years, but this time I'm running on, I want to run because the people have asked me to run. I also am getting up there in age, and I don't have the reading glasses on here, so I'm going to remove my glasses here for a second. So I'm knocking on doors, and I'm asking the community. I'm running on what the community needs are, current community needs. I've explained to community members there is a 9-year-old study called the Comprehensive Community Plan, Development Plan, which identifies what the needs were 9 years ago. So I use the expression, we all want a Cadillac, but do we need it? So it makes the people think what our needs are today. And based on the different areas of the territory that I've come across, our needs are all different. So at the end of the day, I like to look at how do we reprioritize the existing plans, our strategies that we're looking at today, and then realign to where our needs are today. Some of the current needs that are coming up that will help form my agenda in a 3-year term are roads, affordable housing, cheaper electricity, and you may laugh, but free garbage pickup is on there. And the way I look at it, as the items roll out, if there are 5 high priorities and 5 low priorities, in a 3-year term as a leader, you don't make promises. You don't make promises to your constituents that you might not be able to fulfill. And if you can reach one of your goals of accomplishing 1 high priority and maybe 2 high priorities, and you weigh that out, maybe the 2 lower priorities are going to satisfy the majority of the community needs. and at the end of your term, they'll be saying, great job. Partnerships. We need to start looking at partnerships when it comes to economic opportunities. I come from a very diverse background, being a former military, police officer, Indian gaming, court administrator. I went back to school at 50 years old. I originally attended college like when I was 18, what's that, 40 years ago, in recreation. So when we look at our economy and what we're looking for, once again, what are the needs of what our community wants? They want jobs. What can we bring here to this community that will be something that will sustain? Is it manufacturing? And will the jobs be here? I'm the president of the Akwesasne Area Management Board. I currently oversee a $3.5 million budget. I think it's I want to be sure on it. Yes, it is. $3,453,181. And within that budget, we have about $2.5 million that goes towards what we can do to bring in opportunities for our community to go to school for trades, nursing. It all depends on the needs at the time and what is what's the trends that are out there, and then they come and they reach out to us. But I believe we need to start partnering. We have a current partnership with the Akwesasne Employment Resource Center with 2 tribal employees, and I believe 3 or 4 from the Area Management Board. There's a lot to go over, and so I'm hoping that throughout the night in the questions that are asked of us, I can elaborate better on the economic development sector and the other areas that I have written down here. But what I do believe is that good governance requires transparency. And in that transparency, our tribal general fund, I believe that every penny that is spent from that tribal general fund, whether it be through a contract, the public has the right to know how those dollars are being spent. Thank you very much. Now, Goa.
Thank you very much, Sheryl. And thank you to all the candidates for sharing a little bit about yourselves and your platforms, or as Sheryl said, how you see the needs of the community being. We're going to take a quick commercial break at this time. You're watching Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night.
Thompson Marine at Underwater Marina, 75 Ransom Road, Akwesasne. Your locally authorized Mercury dealer with certified marine technicians on site, offering a wide range of services for all your boating needs. Thompson Marine, specializing in Mercury Outboard, Mercruiser, Mercury Racing, and other major brands. You can depend on Thompson Marine for quality workmanship with a knowledgeable parts and service department. Check us out online at thompsonmarinelive.com. Thompson Marine, 518-358-9100.
Watkonuhorado neo kwekwa Akwesasne. Ona oyeri ni osera ge jinaha che yudonondugo ne Thompson Marine. Tano segon chokwa kwatakon hadu jisa hwea nu chi tano ka hwea sun. Ekna wagiro nyawa ko ji was a wakwato.
The perfect place to eat for lunch and dinner is at Shy's Place on School Road in Akwesasne. Offering pizza and wings, fresh cut fries, poutines, and homemade hamburgers, and so much more. You can check out their full menu on their Facebook page. They have homemade lunch specials and homemade desserts. Shy's Place also have delivery and let them cater your next party. First responders get 10% off at Shy's Place. Stop by today.
Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night. My name is Justin Tarbell, and I'm your moderator and host for this evening. We're going to move into the open question period for our candidates here from questions from the audience. Questions will be posed to our candidates, and each will have an opportunity to respond. We're hoping to break the questions down into questions for the chiefs and questions for the sub-chiefs. And again, everyone will have a chance to respond, trying to limit that response to about 2 minutes. So the first question we have for this evening will be a question for the chiefs. What guides your decision making? We'll start off with candidate Sheryl Jacobs.
My decision-making process revolves around the strategy that's presented before you. If you're presented something at the 11th hour, you can't reasonably expect to make a good, sound decision unless you've taken in all the facts and weighed them. So I'm a researcher. I like to do my homework. I call it I do my homework. So if a subject matter is presented to me, I like to ensure that I've done as much due diligence to the subject matter as possible before a decision is made. So if something is dropped on your lap at the 11th hour, you would like to hope that when you sit with the council that you have good dialogue and good discussion, and just because there might be a time frame attached to something, that you just don't automatically look at the clock and say, let's make a decision. There's been a lot of times at the Watahooni board level where important subject matter has been presented, and we do get information that is emailed to us, sometimes a day, maybe 2 or 3 days ahead of time. But you look at the amount of information that is sent to us, you have to learn how to prioritize. So in prioritizing what's coming up for the next day on your schedule, you have to be well informed in making that decision. If not, then the decision that you make could have a negative impact for however long the subject matter may affect the community. But my decision-making process, I like to use an informed decision-making process, being well informed before that decision's made. Thank you.
I use a three-prong approach to decision-making. The first one is making the right decision that you hope benefits everybody. And then the second decision that you make is, it could be the wrong decision, but you hope that it doesn't negatively impact or affect everybody. And the worst decision you can make is no decision at all. And that happens quite a bit. But Sheryl's right that you have to be informed. You can't just go into a meeting all willy-nilly and you know, have somebody speaking on the subject and form an opinion. It's all right to form an opinion, but you have to think about all of the people that it's going to positively or negatively impact. And I think if you weigh the pros and cons of each one, you can come up with a good decision. And if it doesn't agree with the majority in the room, at least you've made that decision. But to say, no, I'm not going to decide on that, that's the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
So it's true that we have a lot of information that gets brought to us at the council table. I had neglected to give my educational background in my introduction. So I have a public justice degree from SUNY Oswego, and I graduated from Albany Law School. So my legal degree really assists me in the decision-making process, whatever it may be. Given the fact that we have a huge amount of material that we have to read through, we have to consume it, analyze it, and come to conclusions on it. And my legal background helps me to do that. I think that after the information is gathered, it's very good to have a healthy discussion and go around the table and get everybody's opinion on it. Sometimes people, you know, see things from a different angle. So I think communication is a really key aspect in the decision-making process, depending on what it is. And you know, I think the decisions that we make at the council table do affect everybody. So they're not lightly entered into, and they're not lightly taken. But I think that, you know, the best interest of the community is at the forefront of every decision that we make. You know, that's my process.
Thank you very much, candidates. Our next question will be for the candidates for Subchief. What roles and responsibilities do you see as a Subchief, and what traits do you offer that makes you the ideal candidate? A little bit lengthy there, so I'll repeat it. What roles and responsibilities do you see as a Subchief, And what traits do you offer that makes you the ideal candidate? Cory?
I see the role of Subchief as being a support system for the chiefs, helping them with whatever endeavor that they are working on at that time. And as for my why I think I would be the best candidate is because I'm very forthcoming. I mean, if you ask me a question, I am gonna answer it straight. You're not gonna hear me dance around any kind of question. Be forthcoming with everything. And I'm a hard worker. I'm gonna work hard for the community, and that's why I think I would be the best candidate.
I think working as a teacher and as a principal has taught me empathy, and to also be able to listen well and to not interrupt. And so I think that makes me a good candidate. But also working at the newspaper has taught me how to be able to think and to be able to look at information and to be able to make decisions there. As a role, as what I see as a sub-chief, is besides supporting the chiefs and their endeavors, is also being in direct communication with the community of Akwesasne, with everybody here. That they have projects and programs and things that the chiefs work on, but I see a sub-chief as being directly there within the community and working one-on-one with anyone who needs help.
Thank you. I definitely agree with Cory in terms of support system for the chief. I also agree with Margie in terms of the communication with the community. I'm going to add one more on to that, and it's also about perspective. You know, what can we bring as a sub-chief where, you know, maybe we can table an idea for the community. Maybe it's a viable option that they would have to listen to. But ultimately, it just comes down to how you can work well within that team structure. And what I bring is years working within a team structure. I'm also great at communication, both written and verbal as well. And, you know, I've been an executive administrative assistant before, so I know the work that needs to go into this, you know, from A to Z. So what I'm looking forward to bringing is just a hard working ethic and the ability to communicate with the remainder of the team.
Thank you very much, candidates. Our next question is for everyone. How familiar are you with the St. Regis Mohawk tribal system? How familiar are you with the St. Regis Mohawk tribal system?
All right, since I had the microphone, I'm going to go first on this one. I know, I'll try to steal it away. I think I have a really strong grasp of how the organization management works within the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. I was actually the director of communications as an interim position a few years ago, and I got to see how things operate from that structure. You know, the communication from the departments and programs all the way up to working with the sub-chiefs and the chiefs as well. You know, there are over 200 programs that work under the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, so there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to how the organization is run. And again, I think it goes back to just repeating that it's about communication. How do we, you know, provide information from one aspect to another whilst, you know, keeping the ultimate goal of keeping the community informed at all times. So for me, it's just, you know, knowing what's going on with the programs, bringing it to the table, and having a healthy discussion and dialogue to make sure that we're doing what's best for the community.
Again, I'll bring it back to working at the newspaper. I've attended like many of the meetings for the last 3 years as the editor-writer for Indian Time. So I'm quite familiar with the workings and the programs of the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. Also, for the articles that we would run, if we saw a person there and we put their photo in a paper, we had to have the correct department or program that they worked in, and so it gave me a broad view and also an intimate view at the same time of the St. Regis Mohawk tribe and its programs and projects and all that they're working on. Thank you.
I'm not very familiar with the inner workings of the tribe, but I'm willing to learn. That's why I am running for Subchief, is to learn the system that with all the programs at the tribe, and just communicate things back to the community. I mean, to be that person there to listen to whatever anyone has to come in and say to me, and bring it to the chiefs, let them know issues that people have on our reserve.
So I became very familiar with the organizational structure of the tribe. It's a huge organization, and I think it's evolved. It's grown exponentially, I think, in the last 15 years, 20 years. So it was a bit of a learning curve when I first entered office as sub-chief, to learn what the organizational structures are, and how the bureaucracy works within the administration. I have a real appreciation for the work that each of the departments execute. The organization is a service providing organization, so I think that, you know, the aims and the efforts of the programs and all of the workers, the frontline workers, all go towards the community. The governmental structure, it deals primarily with issues of sovereignty and economic development, and it's a very broad spectrum, and I think that all of the people that are involved are team players, and they all have their role to play, and they play it well. There's always room for improvement, but I think that the organization, given the size of it, operates fairly smoothly. And I think that anybody entering in the organization, it would behoove them to sit down, take a look at the organizational structure, and see how things actually move through and work. There's a conception, I think, that things should happen quickly, or should happen, you know, a snap of the fingers. But in a lot of instances, the reality is that there's a process. There's a line of communication that has to happen, and you know, I've learned to respect that process.
Having served on council for 12 years, I've become very familiar with the structure there. What our community wants to know from our leaders is when they call you with a problem, that you don't say, "I'll get back to you." That you have an answer for them immediately, and you can guide them and direct them to the right places, whether it be a compliance issue with your fuel, whether it's the, you know, crazy dog in the neighborhood, you know who to contact, the environment. Because our community members most of the time don't want to speak to those people. You know, you know, because they elected you, they expect you to know everything inside and out, whether you've been there for 6 months or 6 years or 12 years. So I have educated myself to the inner workings of the tribal system. Barb and I were a part of the formation of the Duwatahuni Corporation, and that took a lot of understanding on how business works. And then I also changed the voting structure of how Duwatahuni operated, because when they first incorporated, it was just the chiefs that got to vote on any issue. And I said, well, there's 9 of us sitting on the board. Why would you only go with 3? Why not go with everybody? So, you know, it took a while. Like Eric said, you know, things at the tribe don't happen at lightning speed. Sometimes snow piles up on the snails before we get things done. But the fact of the matter is that there is a solid team at the tribe to make sure that your issues are answered in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Over the last 3 years, I've taken it upon myself, because there is no orientation for sub-chiefs when they enter the political field with the St. Rita's Mohawk tribe. So what I've learned over the last 3 years is we are not too much different than the external governments that exist out there. We have an executive, we have a legislative and a judiciary branch, and we are governed by programs and services of 10 major departments. We also have limited liability corporations, and under the Watahooni Corporation, that's where those LLCs fall, which is Mohawk Gaming Enterprise, Akwesasne TV, Mohawk Networks, and the Mohawk Soy. We have the Tribal Clerk's Office, which we also, as a government body, we have monthly meetings. We govern ourselves through a condensed version of Robert's Rules of Order, and we have our administration. And one of the major departments is also our finance. There's a lot of processes involved to all of this. Like Chief Thompson mentioned, that there's a public perception that things should happen quickly, but there's process involved with everything that you're dealing with when you come to the tribe. There's usually a process of either a form needing to be filled out, or having to go through either this office to that office to get to what you need when you're asking, I need fuel assistance, okay? There's a process involved to that, to the application and things like that. So in the past 3 years, I've become very familiar with the structure of the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. Thank you.
And thank you, candidates, for those thoughtful answers. We're going to go to another commercial break. You're watching Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night.
Lazor's Construction, a family-owned business serving Akwesasne for 32 years and specialized in the following services: water and sewer projects, land clearing, driveway, parking lot and road construction, concrete work, demolitions, and more. For information on any of these services, contact Lazor's Construction, proudly serving Akwesasne for 32 years. The convenience and great services all right here at Express Gas. Fill up your vehicle, browse the store, and pick up a coffee at the all-new Tim Hortons. Same great coffee and donuts are now available at Express Gas. Great gas prices and great food, Express Gas, and now Tim Hortons. 155 International Road, Cornwall Island.
The Junk Shop is your new place to find the things you may be missing from your home. Treasures to be found, gifts to be given again, all in one place. Vintage decor items, hard to find antiques? The search has become easier. Lightly used and newly recycled things you need. From the Junk Shop. You're welcome to come explore. This summer, Tackle Box Marina and Spinners Pizzeria is your fun spot. Their facility has boating docks for a small fee and kayak and cabin rentals for your pleasure. Tackle Box also reserve Mondays for families, so be sure to bring the kids. Enjoy your weekends and stop in for their live entertainment and movies by the river. Tackle Box Marina and Spinners Pizzeria. Friendly, experienced staff that will make your summer so easy breezy.
Tackle Box Marina. Get hooked.
Fired. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. You're watching Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night. We are in the section of our program where we are taking questions from the community members and asking them to each one of our candidates. The next question I have before me is for the candidates for chief. And the question is, what would you do to increase voter turnout for local elections and national elections, since those policies affect us? And I'm going to start with Ron LaFrance.
What I've been telling, I teach at Salmon River, and what I've been telling the kids, my students, is that they have to start to take interest in their community, whether they want to go to college, whether they want to get a trade, whether they want to just pump gas. But they have to start to become, they have to start to participate in some of the things that happen in our community. You go to a lot of events, there are small children, there are their parents and the dudas. There's a whole generation, and I'll call them the millennials, because I really don't know what that means, but it's a cool name. But I know I'm not one of them because I don't fit in that age category. But they need to. I encourage them every day that they have to be a part of our community. That's where they're born. That's where they're raised. They're probably going to die here. And then there's that point when they go off and they do their own thing for a while, but we always come home. So you have to take interest. And as far as voting on the local level, we've really never had anybody to vote for. We've had some candidates come. I'm talking the local and state level. We've never had candidates come to my home, you know, to vote. So if you want to vote in the state and like the county, that's up to you. But they don't come to, you know, they pass right through. I remember when we went to a fundraiser for Hillary Clinton, I told her, I said, you know, well, not her, but her team, you know, when you drive through a reservation and go to Podunk, Indiana, you got to understand that the reservation you drove through is the main economic engine. You need to stop and talk to us. So far, they haven't. So, but I encourage more young people to get out and vote, especially in the tribal elections. Thank you. Huh?
Okay, so I think that's a real issue. Apathy in the general public in regards to just voting in general is you know, it's an issue. And I think if you have any interest, and there is interest in local politics on reserve, then you should come out and vote. There's really no reason not to. I think that there's a lot of decisions that implicate the younger generation, so their voice should be heard. But I think, you know, that's education programs, education initiatives to turn out the vote have been utilized nationally. There could be something like that could be utilized here. I think that it ebbs and flows depending on what the election cycle is, depending on who's up, whether or not there's a great interest, whether there's a huge issue that catches the public imagination. But I think, you know, the numbers that we see generally stay the same. They ebb and flow. But I think, you know, public education, encouragement with one another, I think can go a long way, because there's a lot of discussion on Facebook. Everybody discusses all of these issues on Facebook. They should attend some meetings, get the facts, and then the logical extension of that is to participate and come and vote in the election. I think on the local level, you know, we have the ability to influence a lot of the local elections should we choose to do so. We've talked about that numerous times. I think the school board election, I think, was the latest one that shows that we can have an effect. However, the turnout was low this time. There was some vote splitting also that happened, unfortunately. But I think that, you know, we can have an effect on local issues when we choose to.
Could I have the question again, please?
You bet, Sheryl. What would you do to increase voter turnout for local elections and national elections, since those policies affect us?
I would start dispelling the myths to us as Oglahoma people, having been raised not to participate in elected systems. There's a belief out there that we shouldn't be participating in them. When we do participate and our voice is heard, what does it do for us? At the local level, if people aren't participating because there's a myth that we shouldn't be participating, we have to encourage them. And how do we encourage them? Start young. As a veteran, I go in on Veterans Day into the school, into the grade 2 class, and I explain to them what it means to be a veteran, what it means to have served your country. What is so wrong with us as leaders being invited into the school systems at a young age and standing up there as leaders and explaining to them what the elected system really is about? I'd work towards changing the election law in itself. When we talk about elections and we talk about the time frames attached to it, to caucus, to voting day and whatnot. Those are short, and how do we reach our people when we're actually out there campaigning to try to encourage them if we're doing so in a short amount of time? So I would really work through the educational system and educating our children at a young age. And we talk about history all the time. We always complain that our history is not being told truthfully. When we talk about when the elected systems were forced upon us, we have to bring that into the school systems and explain to the youth what it has done to us today and how we've evolved into the governments we are today. So I would concentrate on a lot of education. And to wrap up, I would focus on using social media, but effectively communicating through social media and any other mediums we have available to us.
Thank you very much. The next question is for our sub-chiefs, and we'll start this question with Marjorie. What is your approach to working with the rest of council, especially when you don't agree?
Well, I would just show them the door. No. Kidding, I'm just kidding. I think through continued dialogue to keep the communication open, and to, if I'm not agreeing with them, then maybe I need to look at how I'm thinking, my thought process, and to try and share that with them and have them to understand how I'm thinking, but also to really take the time to think of how are they thinking, where are they coming from, maybe even why are they thinking this, and to just keep communicating, keep it in the communication open.
Thank you. Benny?
This question has been posed a lot to me recently, especially when I go on social media and dialogue with other community members. They agree that I do have a voice, but they're like, what if you get shut down? What if you're told it's not going to happen? Well, I come from the casino world, so I can tell you there's always contingency A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way through Z. So if at first you don't succeed, you try again. You can't be, frustrated at the process. You just have to look at it at perspective and the ability to go at it from another angle. Or even get to know the other elected officials, the other chiefs on board, and just, see how you can, crack into their armor a little bit, and just see if they can give you a reason why they might not like it. Maybe it's from a financial standpoint, maybe from its community. Maybe they can provide me something that I did not take into consideration at first. But again, back to what Margie was saying, it is about open dialogue and the ability to work within that team structure. And again, if it doesn't go my way, maybe I move on to option number 2, but not before I do want to say what I want to say to them.
I agree with Benny and Marjorie on, keeping open communication. You need to look at things from everyone's perspective and sit there, look at it all, and decide. Like what Marjorie was saying, maybe my perspective is off from what they're thinking. But that's the main thing, though, is keep that communication open and listen to what everyone has to say before you give up on anything. And really, you shouldn't be giving up on it. I mean, like Benny said, you take it from another different angle.
Thank you very much, candidates. The next question is for everyone. So Eric, you're holding the mic, if you don't mind. Great question. What are your plans to deal with the drug problem in our community?
Well, that's a big question. I think that, and it's multidimensional. I think there's different categories. There's the historic problems that we've had with alcoholism. There's the cocaine. There's the opiate addiction, and then there's constantly new drugs that are being introduced that kind of are on the periphery. We're fortunate in the way that they're still on the periphery of the territory. We have an opiate addiction issue here that I think that we're struggling with. I think that the pH is doing an admirable job. However, I think that they need additional staffing and additional training to deal with the types of addiction that we're dealing with now as a community. They're more modern issues, in addition to the more traditional issues that we've dealt with in the past. And I think it's a lot of education. There's a lot of issues that start in the home, in the family structure. I believe that a solid family structure contributes to stability as you go along. You know, and we should encourage the stability of the family structure, the education of our kids. I think that we're seeing a new generation come up where they have different types of role models. So a lot of the children now that are coming up, or at least are entering in the collegiate level, have role models that are now university lacrosse players. They're scholar athletes. I think that having those types of role models is excellent, and that the seed has been planted. And like my son's age, who's 13, look towards that, so they're really inspired by that. So it's a huge issue, not one that we can handle in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. You want to go back this way or just keep going?
You got the mic.
I got the mic, okay.
Thanks, Ron.
First of all, if you have family members that are dealing drugs, you need to tell them to stop. I don't know how many times I've said that. We're all affected. Everybody in this room, in one way or another, have been affected by drug abuse, whether it's cocaine, opioids, heroin now is prevalent in our community. When I bring my children to Generations Park, I used to make them sit in the car until I went around all the parking lot and in where they had the playground, so that there were no needles in there. That needs to stop. That stuff needs to stop. I tell my children every day, you need to know the difference between right and wrong, but when they leave my house, we're defenseless as parents. There are a lot of people that prey on children, and that needs to stop as well. The message, and we have experts at the tribe that tell us it's education, education, education. Well, there's the DARE program that works very well in our school system. We have our police officers that are very, their presence in the school, the children have somebody to look up to. And the sad part is they go home and they see their mom and dad or their uncles or their brothers sitting there, with a dirty spoon on the table and a needle in their arm. That needs to stop, and we need to find a way to stop that. But it starts with the individual. If you know somebody that's doing that, you need to tell them to stop. I remember what happened down in Snai when they burned that guy's house down. Is that the answer? No, but it worked. It worked. But the problem is 2 doors down, somebody sets up shop again. I think our police force does a heck of a job curtailing the drugs that are flowing through our community, and I commend them for that. Thank you.
So the question was, what are your plans to deal with the current drug problem in our community? So I took the time to do some homework, and I think we have to look at how we as leaders can contribute to the proactive approaches that are already in place. We have a lot of programs and services currently provided by the tribe. So if there's a need to increase capacity or resources with those programs, we need to look at seriously evaluating what's already in place, the practices that exist, and if there are shortcomings, how do we deal with that? And we got to work with the professionals as leaders. On the law enforcement perspective, we have to work closely with our tribal police department to ensure they have the resources and capacity to be able to address the problem from their perspective. Education was raised. Once again, we can only do so much in educating our people, but as leaders, we've got to step up to the plate. There's all kind of forums, workshops and conferences that take place. When we're asked to present in those forums, we should be stepping up to the plate and encouraging all the participants that are there to encourage their family, their children, or whatever age range they're at, to stay clear of drugs. It starts in the homes also. We've all been raised to know the rights from wrongs. We've been taught right from wrong. It's wrong to do drugs. But what happens when it comes into your home? Are parents today learning skills to identify what's happening when it comes to these drugs that we might not have heard of 20 years ago? So I look at it from the programs and service perspective of assisting as a leader to be proactive, education, and then the law enforcement perspective. Develop a plan how we as leaders can participate, actively participate, and stay involved with that. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you don't mind passing it down to the sub-chiefs, again, the question, what are your plans to deal with the drug problem in our community?
I think everything starts in the home, just as the chiefs were saying. I mean, you need to educate your kids on what drugs can do to you, how it can damage your life, things that will happen if you get on drugs. I mean, I think like youth sports is very important because it keeps your kids busy. It doesn't give them that chance to get involved with those types of things. I keep my children as busy as I can. They don't have a chance to get in trouble because I keep them so busy. And I'm working tightly with the police department, getting feedback from them on what is going on with certain drug dealers in the community. I mean, a lot of people around here, everybody knows who's selling drugs, who isn't. It's just getting the people to do something about it. You know, a lot of people are scared to say anything or do anything about it. I mean, we need to work together as a community to get rid of drugs in our community.
Thanks. I think it's like a multi-level approach, and that includes like strengthening the current programs we have, also strengthening the counseling that we have in school, like many school programs or budgets have, the first thing they cut is counseling. We need to make sure that every local school that our children attend has a school counselor and a school psychologist to actually deal with these problems. Whereas outside of Akwesasne, there are like various reasons why people do drugs, and one has been identified as like a loss of jobs and no jobs, nothing to do in the community. But I think we have a unique problem here. It's a multi-generational trauma, and that needs to be addressed. I think it also includes education, right from the home. When my children, who are adults now, were growing up as teenagers, when they would leave my home, I would tell them, don't do drugs and don't get pregnant, or don't get anyone pregnant. And it worked. But it's more than that. It's keeping them busy. It's keeping them active. It is educating them all the time, telling them right from wrong, and let it grow on that. Thank you.
I think being the last one on this panel, I've had the opportunity to kind of listen to each person come through, and they're all valid points, emphasizing that it does start at home. I remember in junior high, my mother just saying, hey, if you choose to do drugs, I'm fine with that, but you're out of the house. So that was a clear awakening for me that if I choose to do something, there were consequences to it. I also go back to, my brother was on the police force for many, many years, and I see the consequences of that as well. If somebody was to get arrested for, like say smuggling drugs or whatnot, there's got to be consequences to each person that is out in the community. And I do think it starts from the home life. It does start from, our parents, and then education. We look at programs such as JOM, or Akwesasne Boys and Girls Club, and as well as our middle schools as well. We know that there's opportunity. There are people in there for each and every position that has that unique opportunity to say, just really quick, drugs are bad. Alcohol, you have to wait to a certain age. Those are these programs that are set up for this. We need to ensure that they are educated from all levels. And it doesn't hurt, just like Margie was saying too. Tell your kids, no. Ron said it as well, just stop. Do not do it, because there are consequences to those actions. So, and again, I agree that there's multi-levels of this. It can't be just quantified in, a minute and a half to 2 minute speech. It does take some collaboration from all the units and all the programs here at the tribe, including police department and including, the DARE program that was mentioned earlier. So, the dialogue needs to continue.
Thank you all very much for those answers. We're going to take another question here. This next question is for our chief candidates. What do you see as the biggest threat from outside governments at the state and federal levels? I'll repeat the question. What do you see as the biggest threat from outside governments on state and federal levels?
Okay, so on the federal level at this time, I think, under the current administration, there's a dearth of issues that include and implicate an assault on native sovereignty. I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding at the administrative level as to what constitutes our rights and where they spring from. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of the Constitution, about the provisions of the Constitution and how they work in conjunction with one another, and how tribal sovereignty is implicated in that. You hear at this point in time the Trump administration pointing towards budget cuts within the IHS area based on racial classifications. The racial classifications exist under the Equal Protections Clause, but the Equal Protections Clause, conventionally they would be right, but however, when it's tribal sovereignty, where it's tribal people, Indian people is involved, we're considered political subdivisions, political units, and not as a racial category. So there's a real fundamental misunderstanding on what our sovereignty is, and I would almost say a willful ignorance on their part. There may be an understanding, but they're pushing this line. So it's really dangerous, and I think that it's really important for all of the nations to address this in a concerted effort and to answer this issue, because what they're doing is they're moving towards really just defunding a lot of Indian country, and then from there it goes to a diminishment of total sovereignty. Why should we be sovereignty? Why should we be sovereign? What's our distinction if you follow that line of logic? So I ran out of time. I didn't get the state issues.
What I think's going on is you have a president that is more of a dictator than a leader. And what Eric alluded to was he doesn't have a full understanding of the Constitution. And right now in this day and age, there are many, many, many Indian nations that are very powerful. And the people that serve them know that. So when, I alluded to earlier when we went to the fundraiser for Hillary Clinton, they recognized the power that Indian country has. And we also have our own Ungwahumwe senators and representatives who I don't believe they would allow that to happen, even if they were Republicans, because they know at the end of the day that they have to go home. And if they don't have a home to go home to, then they're just going to be assimilated into the rest of, the American public. So part of that is dialogue, and I know Eric and Bev and Mike, they do a very good job, lobbying in Washington, and it's always, they say that there's a lot of people that say that we're wasting our money by doing that, but I don't believe that, because they are looking out for us. Maybe for all the wrong reasons, because we make a $10,000 to $50,000 million check to their reelection, but it works. And as far as the local or the state level, we've gotten a lot of respect. We were invited to the state of the state address, and we were all recognized by Governor Cuomo. So we do have that ability, and it's all about making yourself visible you know, in Washington and in Albany.
Excuse me. They touched on, it's funny because Ron and I did a debate, and every time Ron would answer a question, I had already started writing, and I'm like, there, he's stealing it from me. And then we went back and forth in debate like that. So the erosion of our sovereignty is, I think, is what is being attacked here. I think the more we're pushed through the courts, and every time we lose a court case, that erosion, if it has anything that connects back to Indian country, and they slowly start taking away our sovereignty because they're trying to assimilate us at the end of the day. If we don't participate in their views of us assimilating, they're going to continue to attack us. We have to stand up to protect ourselves through organizations like NCAI, National Congress of American Indians, which Ron alluded to, the three current chiefs participate in those forums, and from what I understand, they are very vocal to the issues that are near and dear to their heart. We have to continue with that process. But the president, I believe, is pushing us towards, if we don't assimilate, he's going to find a way to start stripping away at legislation and take us out of the picture and make us basically just like everybody else out there. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We are going to take another commercial break. Appreciate you all staying with us. Come right back and join us here for Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night.
Thompson Marine at Underwater Marina, 75 Ransom Road, Akwesasne. Your locally authorized Mercury dealer with certified marine technicians on site, offering a wide range of services for all your boating needs. Thompson Marine, specializing in Mercury Outboard, Mercruiser, Mercury Racing, and other major brands. You can depend on Thompson Marine for quality workmanship with a knowledgeable parts and service department. Check us out online at thompsonmarinelive.com. Thompson Marine, 518-358-9100.
Watkonuhoradone gwek wakwasasron. Ona oyeri niyo sera ge jinahe che yudonondugone Thompson Marine. Tano segon cho kwatakon hadu jisa hwea nu chi tano ka hwea sun. Ekna wagiro nyawa ko je was a wakwato.
The perfect place to eat for lunch and dinner is at Shy's Place on School Road in Akwesasne, offering pizza and wings, fresh cut fries, poutines, and homemade hamburgers, and so much more. You can check out their full menu on their Facebook page. They have homemade lunch specials and homemade desserts. Shy's Place also have delivery and let them cater your next party. First responders get 10% off at Shy's Place. Stop by today. The Akwesasne Boys and Girls Club is pleased to announce their first annual Boys and Girls Club Week. There will be a series of fundraisers starting on Thursday, June 28th with a chicken barbecue and boot drive, followed by our 8th annual golf tournament to be held at Cedarview Golf Course. Then we will host our first garden party at the Akwesasne Mohawk Casino. Finally, we will end off our week with a paintball tournament at the Mohawk Militia on State Route 37 in Akwesasne. We would like to invite all community members to join us at any or all of these events.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us to Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night, hosted by the Akwesasne Convenience Store Association. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so this is going to be our last 10 to 15 minute question and answer session. And unfortunately, we're not able to get to all the questions tonight, but your questions are important to us, so we are going to post them on Akwesasne TV's event page on Facebook for the candidates to be able to go in there and answer these important questions that you have for them. So again, I'll make that announcement at the end, but we are going to post these questions in a public forum so that everybody has their chance to have their question asked and hopefully answered by our candidates. That being said, we're going to start off here with our next question, please. Question for the sub-chiefs. Poverty is an issue in the community, even for working people. How will you work to change this, especially for our younger generation? So I'll just repeat it one more time. Poverty is an issue in the community, even for working people. How will you work to change this, especially for our younger generation?
Yeah, poverty is a real issue in our community. I mean, and the way I would go about changing it is trying to work out a way to raise the minimum wage around the reserve. I mean, a lot of people can't survive on $9 an hour, $8 an hour. I mean, there has to be a way to raise the minimum wage where people that they can make money where they can sustain their home. I mean, it's expensive to run a home, and I think if we can raise the level around here of wages, that would help out a lot with the poverty.
Like Cory said, raising the minimum wage would definitely help. I think we really need to support single mothers, single parents. There are young men out there who are single and raising their children. They need a lot of support. I think there's a whole untapped area as far as education goes, and education is the basis of getting and retaining a job, and that's trades and technology. I think the St. Regis Mohawk tribe has to really look into trades and to go in that area. There's a lot of trades that young people can go into and earn a decent, not even a decent, but earn a good living. I think being creative as far as businesses and going into different types of businesses here in Akwesasne and encouraging that through economic development to provide a lot of support for young businesses. I know young people are entering into the workforce, and we need to teach them, and that would be through school, of not only getting a job, but also fighting for that job. Okay, I have a job now. I need to show that I'm going to keep that job. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to kindly ask that you repeat the question. I got stopped in the hallway, so my apologies.
Of course, Benny. Poverty is an issue in the community, even for working people. How will you work to change this, especially for our younger generation?
I think we really need to, it sounds like a broken record, but really push education, because there's an opportunity for each student, starting from elementary all the way up, getting your post-secondary degree, increasing your opportunity to be hired for, good paying jobs, but also the trades as well, ensuring that people know that if, maybe post-secondary education isn't your way, there are trade schools that you can go to as well. There's a lot of opportunity here. It could be in mechanics. It could be an electrician. Just having those opportunities given to them and just educate them that there are ways. There are a lot of resources available as well that students may not, take advantage of because they're not aware of it. So it really falls down to us as leaders to show them the way, to lead by example, to be the role models for them. And then again, I was touched upon earlier about economic development as well, bringing more jobs to the community so these students can actually aspire to go into those jobs as well. Coming from the casino background, we hire people all the time. So regardless of where you live or your background, we want you to grow within a system here. So I just look at it from one aspect of a big economic driver for the community. There's opportunities here. We just have to take advantage of it and show their kids that you can grow with us as well.
Thank you very much. Well, each candidate during their opening remarks talked about economic development, and this next question is just that. This question is for all the candidates, and the question is, what are your specific plans for economic development in our community? And Benny, since you, unless you volunteer to go first, by all means, I was going to give you a break. But again, what are your specific plans for economic development in our community? And I'm probably going to get fired for doing this, but I'm going to give you guys up to 3 minutes to answer this question.
My specific plans are, it's threefold. Again, the education portion of it. I currently sit on the Cultural Tourism Working Group. It has been probably the best group that I've been involved with in a long time. It's chaired by Penny Peters, and it also is collaborating with Economic Development Officer Rayanne Adams. And with it, they have a cool perspective on economic development. It's Experience Akwesasne, which means that there are multiple ways to get outside tourism here, for example, to promote locally as well, to ensure that there's opportunities from, all aspects. And one of the bigger drivers for this committee is that they don't discriminate. There are people from, for example, Akwesasne TV that's in people from MCA programs, people from tribal programs. I represent the casino as well. Sue Hearn from the library. And it's looking at ways collaboratively through all these initiatives to say, hey, not only are we just a casino, but there's other things here as well. So my plan would be to continue working with this cultural tourism group because I think they got something. I think they have something in terms of promoting to the bigger good of the community of Akwesasne. And then let the cards fall where they may because there's a lot of initiatives coming forward. For example, if you guys realize there's a big bass fishing tournament up in Waddington, and we've been vetting it out to see if one day we could host that. We have the casino hotel, we have Comfort Inn, we have a lot of opportunity along the banks of the St. Lawrence as well. Driving tourism to this region would be big. You also see it as well in terms of what we did for the Ironworking Festival. We're getting ironworkers from all over the country to come here, and just to promote that Akwesasne is more than just the casino itself. There's also culture here. There's stability in what there's jobs on the outside. So, but it all starts with just continued dialogue and the fact that we do have a tourism working group right now that some of you might not have even known about, and they're doing good things.
I think that we would need to start working with the youth, and we have a youth council. I think bringing them in and showing them all of the programs that the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe has, but also what Mohawk Council of Akwesasne has, and bridging the gap between the economic development divisions between both of them, from the tribe and MCA. Working with the Ohahio. Each year they provide different programs that Akwesasne people can go through, nursing, food serving, and a variety of other programs. I think that we have to look at, for economic development, I think that we have to also look at, again, it goes back to being the youth, more than just lacrosse. We are a lacrosse community, but we also we're deep and rich in art. From basket making to bead making to film making. And I think we need to be creative, we need to think outside the box, and we need to work as hard as we can to ensure that our youth are ready to go into the job workforce.
I think we need to create jobs, more jobs for our youth. I mean, there's a lot of children around here that aren't interested in going to college. I've talked to a number of them and asked them what their plan is after high school. You're gonna go to college? No, that's not my thing. Need to push the trades, get into electrical, carpentry, HVAC, create businesses for these children to keep going.
Okay. I lost my So last year we had a referendum on medical marijuana and hemp. industrial hemp. I think those are two viable projects. The feasibility studies are completed, and we will have another referendum in the coming year on it. The industrial hemp sector, there's already a market that exists there, so it's just a matter of actually nailing down which product we want to do, and then plugging into the existing markets, I think, that exist, whether it be on the CBD end of things or hempcrete or fabric. So there's manufacturing and grow opportunities that are available. I think the tribe should take a regulatory role in that and allow the entrepreneurs of the community to participate. And there's a lot of ancillary or spin-off jobs that go with that, whether it be trucking or harvesting. So there's that issue. I think those are two solid initiatives that are achievable. It's a big lift. There's a lot of legwork that has to be done on it still, but there are markets that exist there. The medical marijuana industry, there is a smaller market. It's more conservative. It's tighter restrictions, but I think that that's viable as well. They both require a heavy investment, but I think they're well worth it. We have the opportunity to, we live in a community at the bottom of a river valley. We have some of the best fishing in the North Country. I think we have an opportunity to steal away the bass tournament that goes to Waddington. They have thousands of people inundate that town for like 3 days or 4 days for that tournament. So I think that we have the ability, if we invest in infrastructure here, to bring that tournament here, and it would be beneficial in hosting it right here at the casino. And to have that many people on territory, it would have a lot of ancillary benefits. I think that we could take advantage of on a yearly basis. We have broadband expansion going on. I think that this is an important initiative that we're expanding out into different counties. Off territory, we saturated the market there, so I think that we have the ability to create new markets, be an industry leader, and create some revenues from different counties, whether it be Lewis County or Franklin County. I think that's a definite plus. Where we are at the head of the industry in Indian country now as a result of that. We have the agriculture program has a lot of, I'm proud to say that I sponsored that program. There's a lot of potential with the agriculture program, whether it be local homegrown initiatives or else or others, and many, many other things. Talk to me after this debate.
I think the first thing that we need to do is to change the Mohawk preference policy. We need to give our local businessmen the opportunity to take on these jobs that the tribe sponsors. The tribe is the one that's borrowing the money. The tribe should be the one who dictates who and how and when the non-native contractors are going to come in. And to have 40% of our people working on these jobs is not right. They say that $1 spent in your community turns over 7 times. That's power. But to do that, we have to start taking risks. We don't, as the tribe, they don't take risks. We could have had a bowling alley and a golf simulator and a state-of-the-art arcade across the road, but we wouldn't do it. I believe that project would have paid itself off before the novelty wore off. And it was, it was a considerable amount of investment, but I think because we didn't take the chance, we lost the opportunity. And we all sat there in the beginning, we said, oh yes, we agreed with it. And then electric cycle came up. And then all of a sudden the project died. We have to start taking risks. It's good to succeed, but you also learn by failure. That's something that we want to do. This place right here where we're standing, Remember the days when they opened the doors and there was hardly any machines or buttons on the machines? Remember that? Look at it now. Because we took a risk. We took that chance. And everybody is right that we have to start training our children. It's okay not to go to college, because in some trades you can make more than somebody who has a master's degree. HVAC or HVAC, plumbing, being an electrician, being a welder, that's solid work. We have to invest in our children the way we do invest in ourselves. But if you don't take a risk, we're never going to know. And part of that is, you know, we had snake oil salesmen all the time at the tribe, but we were able to, you know, see past that. That's all they want is our money. We have to start spending our money wisely and investing in our own people and investing in our own companies. Without that, we're not going to sustain the programs that we currently have. You can't spend more money if you don't have that kind of money coming in. So it's all about risk.
So we were presented on Friday late with a 16-question document from the Akwesasne Convenience Store Association. So I did some homework, and one of the questions was, what is your plan for economic development? So all weekend I've been racking my brain as to how to answer the majority of those questions, which I have answered the majority of them. So this came up. So what I did is I took the time to do some homework. In the 2009 Comprehensive Community Development Plan, 9 years ago, almost 10 years ago, public investment and development, there was 11 identified areas: education, housing, employment, language and culture, health and social services, governance, justice, economic development ranked 8th. And in that document, it identified certain things as far as what the community was asking of our leadership to take looks at. So I read it, and I started to think, okay, what is the public really asking us, and how have our times changed to where we need to get to in the realms of economic development? So I used that document as my basis to come up with a very preliminary plan to, if you have an economic vision, then the plan needs to be balanced and sustainable. How do we achieve that, though? When we're already focusing on the cultural side, we know that, and we have to give them kudos because they're doing an excellent job with the Akwesasne Cultural Tourism initiatives that are already in place. So industry was identified. So when we look to future businesses and commercial developments, do we have laws in place if we're going to go that way? If we don't, we need to start working on those things now. And anything that we want to attract to bring here in the industry fields, we need to make sure that they're environmentally friendly businesses to talk about. I started to think about, what about national franchises? Well, it was kind of frowned upon in the study to bring national franchises here, but we know it's happening. What about large retailers? And one of the areas was expanding on gaming enterprises. It was rated in there. That was rated as not appropriate. But I started to think in my talks with the elders and people out there, they're very upset that Hannaford is closing. They were very upset what happened with the IGA project. So some of the suggestions to me was, what about a nice size like the IGA in Fort Commenton? So I started to think, what about if you turned that into a strip mall, you had an IGA at one end, and you offered retail outlets to bring in retailers into the area. We all see what's happening in Massena up there. And then let's start small and look to something that's maybe retail-driven, grocery, and then green energy areas also. The youth, the younger couples are talking about green energy ideals. I could go on a lot further, but public transportation is one ideal I had because I want to be able to one day own a little streetcar and drive around and be the public transportation driver on my happy bus.
Thank you all very much for those answers. We're going to do one more question, and then unfortunately we're going to be out of time tonight. That question is for all of our candidates, and the question is, do you think tribal members who reside on both sides of the border should be able to vote? And I'm assuming vote in this upcoming St. Regis tribal election.
I'll take that since I have the microphone in my hand. a precedent was set, and once again it was forced upon us through the Canadian government in a law that was written, and it opened up our border to voting for a law to be passed on the Canadian portion. That law is the matrimonial real property law. So if the Canadian government, the outside governments, can force our people to open up our voting to laws, then our law that we vote under, called the election law, why wouldn't we consider it? When we talk about we're one community, then as leaders, we need to start sitting at the table and start thinking and talking like we're one community, acting like leaders that are going to work for resolve for all the problems that exist on both sides. I grew up with the mindset saying we're one community, one community. But as leaders, we don't act like it when we're sitting at our tables and we have totally different processes, once again, that are being forced upon us that we have to follow through with. The grants process, it's handled this way, the grants process is over there, is handled that way. We talk about the leaders in the community of our 3 governments. Why can't we sit down and work together? And if it means opening up that election law to both sides, if they're willing to do it and we're willing to do it, would that not bring us stronger together as a united community? I think we have to sit down with leaders from all 3 governments, the Mohawk Nation Council of Chiefs, the Mohawk Council of Akwesasne, St. Regis Mohawk Tribal Council, and think about what it really means to have our leaders making these decisions. And they like to use that term for the next 7 generations. Well, then if we're going to talk the talk, let's walk the walk.
We've had actually many meetings about this, and when we always brought it back to, well, it's got to be reciprocal. And boy, it was quieter in that room than it is in here right now. I mean, you could hear a cricket fart. It was so quiet in there. Because you can't. I think to achieve what Cheryl's talking about, there has to be a willingness. It can't always be one-sided. It can't always be, the tribe being the big bad guy. That's what happens. And let's be honest, the Mohawk Nation Council of Chiefs, or even the Guyana Legault, Longhouse, and Hogansburg, their members vote in both elections. So they are represented. But to become one community, that division of that border, it has to stop being brought up when it's convenient. It's like building the hospital right on the border. Well, you can't do that. Well, the radio station's been there for 30 years. It can be done. There just has to be a willingness to do it. And I remember I posed this question to an elder one time, and sadly what they said is the old guard has to die because the old people will not allow that to happen. There is a division amongst the old people where the first thing they say, oh, she's Canadian, oh, he's American. That's got to stop. We're all Akwesasne, whether you want to believe it or not. So there has to be a general willingness, not from just the councils involved, but the people as well. Thank you.
So this is a very, very old issue, and it rears its head periodically. I think Ron and Sheryl both hit on valid points or salient points. I think that it's a community-wide issue that the whole community should decide on. There has to be reciprocity. I think that's only fair. We have a decent working relationship. There's been different examples of how this creeps up. So like in instances where we share resources, we share a road. So Cook Road. It's a very rough road. There's only one road, and it gets used quite a bit. So we raised this issue with MCA to assist us on repairing that road, and we were flatly denied. I mean, because of the different funding streams, different revenue streams, or different grant
requirements. So there's hurdles that have to be gotten over. I think we're moving, maybe moving incrementally towards that. We've opened up and allowed voting to occur on this side with regards to their land claims in order to get larger people to participate, larger voter turnout. So, you know, it's an issue that the community has to decide, but I think that there has to be reciprocity and there has to be willingness at the leadership level.
What was the question?
The question is, do you think tribal members who reside on both sides of the border should be able to vote?
I agree with everything Eric and Ron and Sheryl was saying about it. It has to be a whole community deciding this. I mean, you can't vote when you want on your convenience. You know, all right, I want to be a part of this because it benefits me, but I don't want you to be a part of it because I don't want it to benefit you. I just think that everybody needs to come together as a community and decide whether we want to do that or not. I mean, I just think that if everybody gets together and decides as one what we're going to do about it, I think we could find a happy medium.
I think that everyone in Akwesasne should be allowed to vote. I think that the reason being is that there's a real erosion of our rights as citizens. And I know people don't like to use that word, a citizen, but we're a citizen of the Mohawk Nation or of the St. Regis Mohawk Tribe or Mohawk Council. And there's been a real erosion, or they are trying to erode our rights out there. And if both the northern side and the southern side are able to vote, we will be stronger together. I know MCA will, in the future, will ask for that in one of their land claims issues. They will need so many votes that the only way for them to get those votes would be to open it up for everyone. And those would benefit all of Akwesasne to win that land claims. There are so many issues: border crossing, economic development, education. And I wanted to mention this, is that Akwesasne is the most educated Native American tribe in the United States. And that comes from the Akwesasne Mohawk Board of Education. That funding doesn't come from the tribe. It comes from MCA. And we need to recognize that, and we need to work more together.
I do agree that as an entire community of Akwesasne that we should be eligible to vote. But again, to what Eric alluded to, there are a lot of things we need to take into consideration, especially when we consider like the financial implications, grants. But again, I really like what Margie was saying, is that, you know, together we are a stronger voice. It's just, how do we identify the hurdles? How do we work together collectively between the two governments, and actually 3 governments, to come to an ideal voting system on this? And then hopefully, seeing that come to fruition, we can make a one vote decision and be done with it, because I think we all have a voice collectively living here in Akwesasne, regardless if you're northern or southern portion.
Thank you very much, candidates. Folks, as you know, we have to draw this session to a close, but I want you all to know that your questions are important to us, especially those that weren't able to be answered tonight. So we are going to be posting all of these questions, especially all the unanswered questions, on the Akwesasne TV event page under Meet the Candidates Night. I'd strongly encourage all the candidates to be frequently visiting that site to see questions that were posed specifically for your positions, and responding to the community here for those answers that they are deserving of. I want to thank the Akwesasne TV crew, and that we have such talented people here in our community. that we're able to bring this type of presentation and technology to Akwesasne and beyond. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, both present and online. I especially want to thank our candidates this evening for coming and presenting your platforms and answering these important questions. How about a quick round of applause for our candidates as well? Folks, that's it for the 2018 edition of Akwesasne TV's Meet the Candidates Night. This event and live broadcast is brought to you by the Akwesasne Convenience Store Association here at the Akwesasne Mohawk Casino Resort. Thank you all for joining us and have a great night. Yes.